Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Chair Sharon Summerall, and I would like to welcome you to the April 24th, 2023 Neighborhood Advisory Committee. I'm going to give you a very brief overview of how many members. Okay, I'm sorry I'm winging this as I'm generally Vice Chair. Our Chair is at another committee meeting today and she can't make it. Our NAC committee consists of 9 members, all appointed by City Council with representation from specific community sectors. Members shall be residents of the city or the city's extraterritorial zoning jurisdiction and shall reflect the socio-economic diversity of Asheville. The term of office is 3 years. The committee was established to advise the City Council on neighborhoods within the City of Asheville's zoning and planning jurisdiction. The committee shall have the following powers and duties. We can develop rules and bylaws and conduct of its business, including but not limited to meeting schedules. We develop a plan to strengthen neighborhood identity and resilience. We develop benchmarks and standards by which progress towards implementing the plan can be measured. And we work on special projects that are consistent with the goals and the committees as assigned and directed by City Council. We are now participating live, and we are streaming live in our virtual engagement hub, which is accessible through the virtual engagement link on the front page of the city website and also linked on the committee page. We also have an option for the public to listen live by phone by dialing 855-925-2801 and entering meeting code 9247. For those of you out there with us today, welcome. I will now go through and introduce all the committee members, or they will introduce themselves, and who are, we are not virtual anymore. Please make sure to mute your microphone if you're not speaking. When you have a question you would like to speak, click raise up. No, that's not us either. What I do remember is we need to speak directly into our microphone. Don't lean back because we will be muted via the public will not be able to hear us. So committee members that are in attendance, please call your name, say what neighborhood you represent, and I think that's it. So let's start with this side of the room.
Hello, everyone. I'm Wendy Hayner, and I represent zip code 28804.
I'm Elizabeth Likas. I'm an at-large member, and I reside in 28803. No, I don't. Yes, I do. I had a blank moment. I don't know where I live. Yes.
It's Monday. Hi, I'm Elise Martyr. I'm also an at-large member residing in 28806.
And I'm Sharon Summerall, and I'm vice chair, and I'm at 28805.
And I'm Michael Fulbright, 28801.
All right. So we have approval of our draft minutes. Has everyone had a chance to take a look at it? And then what I would like to have is if we could vote to approve our draft minutes. A motion to approve our draft minutes.
I'll second that.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So do we have any public comments?
We don't, but it might be nice to take just a second to introduce your new committee member who just arrived.
Hi, sorry about that.
Sorry, I didn't even see her. Thank you for saying that.
Sure. Yeah.
Hi. Would you like to introduce yourself and state what neighborhood you're representing?
Yeah, so my name is Moira Belange. Most people can't say my last name, so Moira is fine. And I represent 28806, so the west part of Asheville. I got a little lost coming here, so I apologize. But, you know, it was a good workout, so lots of
Welcome.
stairs and hills, so I appreciate it. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. We can advise on parking also for you to make life easier if you're not familiar with where to park.
Yeah, that would be.
All right. Let's see. We have no public comments, no pre-meeting voicemails or emails or in-person comments. So that takes us to our next agenda item, which is staff activities and updates. And I believe, Dawa, you're going to give that.
Good evening, committee members. Dowa Hitch, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Communication and Public Engagement Director for the city. and our department staffs, this wonderful committee. Today, I just wanted to give a brief overview of an initiative that was announced just last week, and that is our Downtown Safety Initiative. This initiative is really going to kick off on May 1st. And essentially, what it will mean is that there are some focused resources that will be focused on downtown. And that's certainly meant to be a comprehensive focus. So in addition to, of course, law enforcement, then we've also got some other efforts that are going to be made. And then outcomes are going to be reviewed at the end of that 60 days, and then there'll be some decisions about what next steps look like for maintaining both a safe downtown and a safe overall city. So a few pieces, in addition to additional law enforcement presence downtown, there's also going to be the kickoff of our community responder program. There are a number of things that are happening, and would just encourage the committee to look at the project page for this and encourage your neighborhood contacts to do the same. Folks can sign up or subscribe to that project page, so as the marks that are going to be measured are added to that page, we'll be able to proactively send communication to the folks that are subscribed, which I think can be very helpful, because this thing, it will continue to evolve, and there's that really important aspect of being able to track what we're doing. So a survey that was done by the Asheville Downtown Association is going to be used as the pre-survey. They sent that out to through their network. So we've got an idea of what the sentiment was before this initiative kicked off. And then, as I mentioned, the different departments that are contributing will be tracking what their efforts have been. And then at the end, there will be a post-survey. So we can, again, look at exactly how much additional effort was put in, and then did that effort change perceptions and or crime data as it relates to downtown. So again, there's a lot to it. If you're interested, there was a presentation, if you will, that was given by the city manager at City Council's agenda briefing meeting this past Thursday. So again, that's available on our YouTube channel, but would again encourage you all to please share that project page. You can get to it a couple of ways. If you go to the front page of the website, you can just tap it or type in Downtown Safety Initiative, and that'll take you there. Or if you want to go to the Virtual Engagement Hub, it's posted there at the pinned to the top of that page. So there's a couple different ways that you can get there. And again, that page will continue to be updated, and subscribing will help us be able to share those updates in real time with people. Dawa, I have a question. With Quentin Miller, our sheriff, could you tell us how many Buncombe County Sheriff Department members will be assisting?
I would not at all feel comfortable speaking on behalf of another organization, especially as it relates to law enforcement and response, an operational response. But I do just want to say that leadership is certainly grateful for the strong partnerships that we have in this initiative. It is not something that city government can do alone. And so those partnerships, whether they're neighbors, businesses, other agencies, it's really going to take all of us working together to get to the root at some of the causes of the upticks in crime that we've seen downtown.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a follow-up to that. I believe it was an article in the Asheville Watchdog that actually gave a link to the plan document that the sheriff put together that very explicitly describes what's going to happen, how many officers are involved, what they're going to be doing. It's kind of draft. I did see a few errors in there, but it pretty well explains the specifics of what's going to go on. If I can find that link, I'll send it to you.
Asheville Watchdog.
Yes, I'm 95% sure it was in an article that they recently put out after this initiative was announced.
Great.
Is that it? Thank you, Della.
Oh, you're very welcome.
All right, so we have unfinished business, and we have bylaws review from the working group, which was myself and Peter Absurd, but the main person that did most of the work, and I know it's true though, was Elise Martyr, and thank you very much for, and I don't know if everybody's had a chance, and thank you for printing it out for us to take a look at the changes in the bylaws. When bylaws are written and then we may need to be changed, they have to be approved by all of us on the committee on NAC. And then it gets submitted to legal, and then it will go to be adopted by council, I believe is the order of things. So I'm not sure, I don't know if our new people have had a chance, probably not, to wade through our bylaws. But we're missing a couple of other people. But the bylaws are what we hold ourselves to, our standard terms of office, what our position is, and it's important to have it updated. And it was updated for, let's say it was on 2021 when I first got on. And we've had to update it with some changes on it. COVID changed some things, and we got out of sync with our bylaws. And so some of these changes are reasoning us back and getting us more specific on our meeting dates and our annual meetings, etc. So I'm not sure how we should go through this. Elise, do you have any?
I was just planning to kind of go through one by one. Some of them are just sort of like grammatical sentence structure kinds of things, but some of them are more substantive and might require some additional discussion. If that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's fine. You take
Okay.
hold of this. You've done a great job.
Thank you. And I know we have other things on the agenda, so if we're running short on time, we need to move on. I'm certainly fine with us stopping wherever we get to, and then we can continue the discussion at the next meeting. I believe everyone has a copy of the proposed bylaws as amended, or with proposed amendments. I'm just going to start at the top. So we've got Article 2, Duties, Section 1. This is regarding the purpose of the committee. And you can see how it was currently written on the left column and then the proposed text on the right. And so the change here is just to eliminate a few words and to add a comma, to revise the clause to be more action-oriented, and to use an Oxford comma to clarify list items. And something in particular about this sentence right here that is worth commenting on. Several other draft copies of the bylaws that I was working on to synthesize these all together mention that the actual exact text of the establishing resolution, which is resolution number 1298, does not actually include the last clause, and to listen, et cetera, et cetera. It appears to have been added between June and July 2021 meetings. I went back to those meetings and looked at the minutes and the documents that were shared at those meetings. And if you look at the June meeting, that clause, and to listen, et cetera, is not in the proposals that were discussed at the June meeting. But at the subsequent meeting, July 2021, it was included as a revision and then adopted during that meeting. So I just wanted to just make note to everyone that that clause, and to listen to, educate, develop, and support neighborhoods, is not actually in the establishing resolution, in case that affects anyone's opinions on that. It seems like there was another body of members that did want to put that in there, and whether or not we want to retract that is up to us.
I don't think that there's any discussion on that. I think it's very straightforward, and I agree with you 100% to the purpose of the change. Revise it. I think that's right, spot on.
I'm agreeing. I think that because it's being brought to this meeting and however far we get through, that any changes that we decide that we like or any changes that we vote on it now so that we can, if there's any left over, then we can bring it to the next meeting and we don't have to revisit everything back over if that's
Kind of do like a line by line
Yeah,
motion
because that's
and
how you
vote.
have it, motion and vote line by line. I think that's how we should do it.
That's fine.
And that way, if we have to stop due to time constraints, we know where we've stopped and we continue. If everybody's agreeable with that.
Yes.
Okay.
Then I guess what would be appropriate would be for someone to make a motion where they say, I propose changing the text of whatever to whatever, is that Robert's rules?
If we do it line by line, I would say so. As long as we're all in agreement with it and
Right.
it's taken to legal with the fact that it's been agreed to. And, or if it's not been agreed to, then we leave the text as is or as was.
Okay.
So, and I'll make a motion then that Article 2, Section 1, that the revisions of the proposed text replaces the current text.
I'll
A
second.
side note I'd like to make is when I'm reading and I went over these, I want to say I appreciate the reason for the change over on the far right. And that really clarifies the statement as to why it's being changed. And going back to our legalese within the city, they will see that as a plus as to why it was changed for the better. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So did I.
I second it.
Second it, all right, and then, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So, Article 2, Section 1 passes.
Awesome. I'll go ahead and discuss Article 3, Section 1. I believe this has to do with officers. Section 1 is in regard to just naming the officers and when they'll be elected. So the original text, the committee shall elect these officers at the annual meeting, and the proposed text just adds the clause term length is 12 months. And the reason for this is that we haven't held our annual meeting with the schedule that we should have in the last few years due to COVID. And so this additional clause just kind of very, very clearly indicates that even if the annual meetings are not occurring on their regular schedule, that the officer term limit is that 12 months.
I agree. Are there any discussion on this? All right, so I make a motion that Article 3, Section 1, that we approve the proposed text to replace the current text.
All in favor, say aye.
We need a second?
I'll second.
Yeah. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you for this, Elise.
Article 3, Section 2, specifically detailing the duties of the chairperson. There was just some unnecessary words at such meetings as are reasonable, and so I took out at such meetings, as well as added an Oxford comma in a few commas at the end. Now, I did see comment 2. Okay, there were some comments on this because I did add some commas in there that seemed appropriate in my view, but I want to make sure I was interpreting that correctly. And it wasn't like business affairs as one phrase, and it actually means business affairs and policies. So let me see what my notes said. Yes, the original clause said, recommendations and information at such meetings as are reasonable and proper for the conduct of the business affairs and policies of the NAC.
It needed to be separated.
Is it business affairs and policies? That's how I interpret it, so if other people are.
Because the business is one thing and affairs is another thing, so therefore it required a comma between those two words.
Well, I thought a little different because I thought the business affairs and policies, but I don't have a strong opinion on it because that's what we have in the previous text. And I kind of agree with the previous text, but it doesn't matter because business and affairs of business, comma, I didn't make a lot of sense to me. I prefer business affairs and policies.
Well, don't feel like we have to agree on all these changes.
No, I
If
know.
anyone wants to disagree, that's
Yeah.
totally fine.
Yeah.
We also have legal's gonna
Yes,
look at it.
they're
Right.
gonna,
They will
they're
do
gonna
something
take
like
care
that.
of that.
Well, and I think my thought was that usually when you see a list, it's in sets of 3, and so my brain just put it that way. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that was the original intent.
Is there a difference between business and affairs? Can we just say business and policies? I mean, are there affairs that are different from business? I don't know, but, I mean, to simplify it even more.
I mean, honestly, the word affairs could actually be removed and just put policies,
That's what it should
business,
say.
comma, policies. Sometimes affairs could be so vague that removing that word would probably be more inducive to the document than it would be putting that word in and being very vague.
Would someone like to make a motion to amend the amendment?
I would like to make a motion to amend the Article 3, Section 2 by removing the word affairs and having conduct of the business and policies of the NAC.
Discussion? If we do that, as it says now, as such meetings as are reasonable and proper for the conduct of the business and policies. So, do you want to leave the in there of business and policies of the NAC?
Yes, we
instead
could
of
leave
the?
business and policies.
No, I'm talking about there's the word the before business. in
Yeah,
the
the
old text.
business and policies of the NAC.
Okay, and proper for the conduct of the business and policies. So I don't see why we need of the
No,
business.
just period after policies.
I don't think I'm making myself clear, or I'm not understanding.
Okay,
Okay, let me say this again.
okay.
It says, and proper for the conduct of the business affairs and policies of the NAC. So, so what you want to change it to is, and proper for the conduct of the business and policies of the NAC.
Correct. Just by removing the word affairs.
Of the business and policies of the NAC. Conduct of business and policies of the NAC. Do we need the redundancy of the business and policies of the NAC? Or conduct of business and policies of
Well,
the NAC?
when I look at this and I think of you, Elise, doing this process and having that word affairs in there, you just left it in there. And probably by looking at eliminates unnecessary words.
Well, that's why I'm saying leave the
So-
out.
Right.
I think what Sharon is talking about is in so if you look at the second line from the bottom on
Right.
proposed text, you're talking about taking out the before conduct. Or
Well,
you ta-
I'm looking at
I think
the,
she's talking about
I'm
the
looking at my
before
copy of
business.
the old
And
bylaw.
proper
Okay.
for
Excuse
the-
me?
the conduct of the business and policies. So,
I'm
The
reading-
Sharon wants to take out the before business, for the
Okay.
conduct of business and
and-
policies.
That's fine.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking. I mean,
Okay.
it seems the,
You want to make a amendment to that proposal?
yeah, I'd
So
like,
let's read it out loud.
Okay. Go for it.
Okay, so I will read the amended proposed text. The chairperson shall preside at all meetings of the full NAC and shall submit an agenda, recommendations, and information as are reasonable and proper for the conduct of business and policies of the NAC.
There you go.
yes.
I'm
have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, can you make the changes on that? Ms. Elise?
I don't have a pen.
Here.
Do electronic. Okay, we're gonna take out this, and we're gonna take out this. Okay. I will correct that in here before
Okay.
we go to print. All right, moving on to Article 3, Section 3. This is regarding the vice chairperson duties. Does this continue? It continues on the following page, just so you're aware. And again, this is just an instance where in the first part, there's an Oxford comma used to clarify list items. So that becomes, in the event of the chairperson's death, resignation, or removal, it was resignation or removal, now it's going to be resignation, comma, or removal. The vice chairperson shall assume the chairperson's duties. So that's adding an Oxford comma, and then further on in that sentence, changing shall assume the chairperson's duties until such time as the NAC shall elect the new chairperson. To more specifically clarify this, saying that they will assume the chairperson's duties for the remainder of the term of office, or until the NAC elects a new chairperson.
That's a very good clarification. Very good.
I move we accept that. Article 3, Section 3.
All right, make a motion to approve the changes from the proposed text from the current text, Article 3, Section 3. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
All right. How are we doing on time? Do we have time to keep
We
going?
are at 6:29, and we have
30 minutes assigned to this.
I want to leave some time for your festivals group,
and we also have
and we have some presentations.
Mr. Knighton, who, 15 minutes, and how much time do we need on the Festival of Neighborhoods? I was,
We're
unfortunately.
actually 30 minutes ahead.
Oh,
Not
okay.
very long on the festival.
Okay, so let's do another 10 minutes on this. Does that seem reasonable?
It's fine.
Seems reasonable to me.
I think it's mostly this next one that is more involved. All right, so we're going to move on to Article 3, Section 4. This is regarding elections of our officers. The first sentence is being suggested to be removed. First of all, it included an office of secretary, which the last revision of the bylaws actually removed the office of secretary, so this was just kind of an artifact that was still there. And also, that very first sentence was specific to the very first iteration of the NAC when it was brand new. So that wasn't really necessary anymore, and shortened that section, and then added the sentence, such officers of the NAC shall hold office until the next annual meeting.
And it really does clarify the length of time, which is necessary. And this has been an ongoing discussion about the length of time someone is in office, and so this will take care of that right away. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, so the original text, I just want to call out, the original text says, at each annual meeting following their election and until their successors are elected and in office. And so that was just a little vague, or leaved a lot of room for,
Well, going forward,
until
it
they're-
will be much easier for the members of NAC to know when they're going to be elected and what they want to do, if they want to continue in that position, or someone else wants that position. So,
Yeah, we have nominations.
Yes.
Elections. Yes, this other was very vague.
there, yeah.
So thank you for that. Do we all understand that? We can go ahead and have a vote on Article 3, Section 4, that we...
Article
a
4,
motion,
Section 1.
For the
I
proposed...
move that we accept the proposed
Proposed
changes,
text.
Article 3, Section 4
Mhm.
is written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Ms. Elise.
Okay, let's keep on going. We are going to go to Article 4, which is in regard to meetings, Section 1 regarding regular meetings. Just adding here that, as it states, that our meeting will be held each month at such location as designated in advance, and I thought it might be good to add at such location and time as designated in advance by the chairperson. Pretty simple.
I agree. Any discussion?
I'll make a motion that we accept Article 4, Section 1, the proposed text.
I will second that.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay. Article 4, Section 2, this is regarding the annual planning retreat meeting. This is just an elimination of unnecessary words, shortening, the annual meeting of the NAC shall be the regular meeting of the NAC that occurs in August or the first meeting thereafter. The proposed text is the annual meeting of the NAC shall be the regular NAC meeting in August or the first meeting thereafter.
Much clearer.
Yes.
And we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to accept Article 4, Section 2, as written, as proposed.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Please say aye.
Are you cheering? You can welcome to sit
No,
down. I would love it.
I was just going on, finish it up.
I get it. Okay, any opposed? All right, we are looking along here, Ms. Elise.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
determined to finish this
We
today.
are.
Let's see, a little bit further down in that section, let's see, just removing the article the. Let's see. So I'm just going to read the proposed text because there's lots of little changes in here. At annual planning retreat meetings, in addition to its regular business, the NAC shall set the meeting schedule, develop an annual work plan, and elect officers. And I do have a comment on this. That has to do with the previous revision cycle in July 2021. The text of this first sentence, it said the annual planning retreat meeting of the NAC shall be the regular meeting of the NAC that occurs in August or the first meeting thereafter. During the July 2021 revision cycle, there was some discussion surrounding this date. June was also suggested, considering that the city's fiscal year begins July 1st. Historically, it seems it's been in August, but we have the opportunity now to reconsider.
So
Consider.
the planning retreat meeting and the annual meeting are two different things, right?
I believe they're actually the same.
Yeah, they are the same.
They're just called two different things, is that right?
Well, in total, it's, I think
annual
before we were calling it
planning.
the annual meeting and the retreat meeting, when actually it's the annual planning
Planning
retreat
retreat.
meeting.
Yeah, because I don't remember having an annual meeting and a retreat meeting. I just remember having the retreat meeting where we discussed what our agenda items were for the next coming year.
We did not have an election, so therefore,
No, we didn't.
so that's the reason why that was omitted. And so we need to take that into consideration when we're writing the new bylaws from looking at past, Sharon. So that's the reason why this needs to state the annual planning retreat meeting. We could say annual planning election retreat meeting if we wanted to add the word elections in there. But I think that honestly, the word annual planning retreat meeting brings all that together.
I will mention that earlier in the document, it simply refers to this meeting as the annual meeting.
Okay.
And Article 3, Section 1 says that these officers at the annual meeting, so if we're going to do that, then we don't need to call it the annual planning retreat meeting and be more specific in the proposed text when we elect officers. So that we're calling it the same thing.
I was under the impression from last year that the retreat, there was a retreat meeting that was different and longer than the annual meeting. Is that
That's
right?
right.
So they are two different things, aren't
I don't remember an annual meeting.
The retreat meeting
thing that
is
we
much
planned.
longer. It
That's the
consists of a
retreat.
lot more time
they? Okay.
because, but it can also be blended in with the elections.
Well, okay, Elise and I and Carl worked on the retreat, and that is the only meeting I remember last year. I don't remember an annual meeting, but then I had COVID for 2 years of my term, so I don't remember if we ever had an annual meeting, but we did have a retreat because,
And I want to say that we discussed including the election of officers in that meeting, but because it wasn't in August, it like didn't count as the annual meeting, and so we like couldn't do that or something.
right, and so I think we're coming back to this same discussion. So if we look at, again, Article 3, Section 1, the committee shall elect these officers at the annual meeting. Term length is 12 months, that we're going to combine the annual meeting with the retreat, and we call it the annual retreat. I'm
Well-
not sure, because I don't remember having an annual meeting since I've been on, but there may have been before.
Is it designed that when the city council makes appointments for the 12-month terms, does that happen? Is that when that annual meeting is supposed to happen?
No, that is something separate, when we have openings, and now they're on every three months, where they're electing people for a board, so that doesn't coincide. Generally what it is like we all come in at different times, we're staggered. But every year we have a retreat that we discuss what we're gonna be doing on our projects and what our following year is going to look like. As some of us term off, we've got an agenda. But calling it, I don't know if we've ever had an annual meeting on top of a retreat. And I don't remember, because like I said, I was 2 years on COVID and we didn't have that.
Well, the annual meeting here does not have a particular month located. So it's just saying the term length is 12 months.
It did in our old bylaws, I think it said August. And that's where, Section 2, annual meeting, the annual meeting of the NAC shall be the regular meeting of the NAC that occurs in August, or the first meeting thereafter. An annual meeting, in addition to regular business of the NAC, including setting the meeting schedule and annual work plan. So that setting the schedule and the meeting schedule and annual work plan was done this last year as a retreat. I don't know whether it was done before and whether we should keep it all together as a retreat. It makes sense to me that we keep it all together as a retreat, and then we just have
It's all
to
done at one
wrestle with
time.
the name. Do we want to call it our annual retreat meeting?
My suggestion is to just call it the annual meeting.
Okay, and then on another board and commission I'm on, they call them retreats.
Well,
So-
if you go
but
back-
It doesn't matter.
But Sharon, if you go back to Article 3, Section 1, it says the committee shall elect these officers at the annual meeting, period. Okay, let's go back and look at this, and it says here, at annual planning retreat meeting. So it's all one and the same.
I like calling it the annual retreat meeting personally, because
So why don't we
retreats
go back
part
up
of our-
here and on Article 3, Section 1, put an annual retreat meeting in the wording instead of,
Yeah.
I agree.
If we decide here to call it whatever, annual retreat meeting, then we should be
Keep it-
consistent
yes,
and
we
fix
need to
that
be
throughout.
consistent. So that, my suggestion is to go back and amend Article 3, Section 1, by putting the word retreat in annual meeting, annual retreat meeting, and then that will refer back to this Article 4, Section 2.
If we agree to change the name to annual retreat. So I think that's what our proposal is to first decide if we all want to call it the annual retreat, the annual meeting, or the retreat. And then we'll make this changes into Article 3, Section 1.
Well, if this is the case too, then wherever you see it is mentioned, it needs to always be annual,
That's correct. That's
whatever we
correct.
choose. Okay?
So I think our discussion is, and I see, Elise, you're so great at parsing down words and making it so simple, which is wonderful. But then there's old people like me that know retreat, and because I've been past boards, and I think retreat means, it's generally a longer meeting, we have, food and all the camaraderie. It's kind of like the retreat to me sounds a festive vacation to get together and plan our agenda.
So can we go back and just state here on Article 4, Section 2, to leave the wording annual retreat meeting, and take out the word planning?
If we all agree to retreat being added into
So
that.
if I will put a motion on the floor that we remove the word planning from annual planning retreat meeting to just annual retreat meeting. Is that clear?
Yes, I second that.
Could we actually, what is, as somebody, this is my first meeting, what is the significance of the word meeting? Like, is it redundant to have retreat and meeting? Could we just say annual retreat?
That's a good point, because we're already having regular monthly
Okay.
meetings.
I'll
So
just
the
jump
annual
in and just
retreat.
probably from a legal perspective, I am not an attorney. I do not want to speak for the city attorney's office, but there are within the general statutes that govern boards and commissions, specific mentions about meetings, and so that word does mean a little bit more, and I might just advise for clarity
Legalese.
to leave meeting in. So there's not an impression that maybe it's something that's not a public meeting, which is defined by general statute.
Thank you.
That's
for
a
that.
really
Thank you.
great question. And then here's the beginning of the intricacies of government.
All right, so
We're gonna vote on
we're going to
removing
vote on
planning.
that, yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So we're at our 15-minute points, but I think we can finish this, Article 4, Section 6, if
Yeah.
everybody's in agreement.
Yes. Quorum, what was added was the last sentence, minutes shall be taken when a quorum is present. And this was one of those, I think you provided several draft versions of the bylaws that were put together like during the previous revision cycle, and that was something that they had considered, but didn't make it at that time. So, simple
Yeah,
addition.
at any meeting when a quorum is present, minutes shall be taken.
Yes, that was put in, that, this was a draft copy
Yes.
that didn't get accepted, that you had shared with me, so that was something that they had
Oh,
considered.
this didn't get accepted,
No.
and yet I'm working off of it. Okay. I think it should be in there.
All in favor
Motion.
of a motion to keep it as it is written, website at least 48 hours before the meeting. Minutes shall be taken when a quorum is present. Any discussion on that?
Do we need a motion in a second?
We
Motion?
need
That
a-
was the
yeah.
motion.
Okay, I second.
I
Okay.
wasn't ready, but you're quick. So, any discussion? All right, no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, kudos.
Okay, last one, and this is again another it was something that was considered in the previous revision cycle, and I guess it didn't make the cut. But it was what I was given to work with. And we might want to consult with these folks over here, adding just to the end of section 8 regarding minutes, that draft minutes should be labeled as draft and posted within a week of the meeting.
And we're doing that now.
Let me ask staff, is posted within a week of the meeting reasonable? Or should we say and posted? And leave out a time frame of how long, considering staff issues past and present, maybe? During COVID, it was kind of a nightmare.
I'm thinking on that one.
And these are
And
draft
we're
minutes,
looking
not
at
like final.
Section 8 minutes.
Yes.
Is that
Yes,
correct?
Article 4, Section 8.
Minutes. And the addition that's being considered is within 1 week of the meeting?
Within a week of the meeting.
Is that prior to the meet, the draft minutes prior to the next meeting?
I think it means like the week subsequent to the meeting that we had. So like the minutes from this meeting posted by Monday of next week.
But labeled as draft until we.
Yeah.
But don't we always view the minutes as a draft when we come and sit in this room at the meeting?
Yeah, right, so they're usually posted along with the agenda before this meeting.
Yes.
And so do I understand what the committee's asking is that we move up when the draft minutes are posted to the website?
Kind of. I think that's a good point, Dawa. I think what I like to see is a draft and posted, period, knowing that they're going to be posted within a reasonable time. I mean, if we want to do that without specifying a time as a week. Only because having gone through COVID and all of this, it was just, everything was, lucky we got anything done.
That's a good change.
Yeah, I would say that.
Draft and posted, no timeline.
And no timeline.
Right, and then there are some other requirements that we have for posting materials of a noticed meeting within, I want to say it is 48 hours.
This is a.
So that will keep you in
Minutes.
line with the protocol of city council and all other boards and commissions. It might not be as confusing to folks if we keep with that standard.
What you're saying is just posted without a.
You could leave that, and then we'll be required to have them
And then you'll
posted
have your
if they're on the
requirements.
agenda within that required 48 hours. And maybe 72, I need to look at exactly. Do you recall? I think it's 48.
Okay, so it seems like the suggestion now is to add to the end of that section, draft minutes should be labeled as draft and posted, period.
Perfect. I make a motion. Have a second?
Oh, I don't want to second my own thing, I want someone else to
I
second
will
it.
second it.
I was waiting for you to finish your sentence. I didn't know what you were saying.
Well, I'm
Make a motion?
Yeah, I make a
You had
motion
me
to
on the
keep
edge
it
of
as
my
drafted,
seat, Chair.
add posted, and leave out within
Yes.
a week of
Yes.
the meeting, sorry. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Oh,
So,
do we also want to do the thing about changing all references of annual meeting to annual retreat meeting?
Yes.
I think we should do that.
yes, whatever.
Wherever that is written, it will always reflect those words.
Okay, but do we need to like officially?
I think that is mandatory, isn't it?
Yeah,
from-
well, she's asking whether we need
Oh.
to have an official.
I would like to
yeah,
make a
official-
recommendation for going forward, all the bylaws will reflect the new vocabulary for annual meeting,
Annual retreat.
annual retreat meeting. Wherever it's written, it will reflect. All in favor?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and many good
I
ideas.
will aggregate all of these additional changes and I guess share with Christina a final copy that no longer has the revisions underlined, and that'll be like our go-to-print
Yes.
version.
And I think it would be apropos to submit this to
Yes.
the legalese.
I will correct
Yeah,
it.
to be clear, the next step is to take what you all are proposing and run that by the city attorney's
Yes.
office. And then
Mhm.
before anything substantial can be done, I believe that city council has to vote on those changes to the bylaws.
Okay.
Thank you. Done and done well.
That was painless.
All right, so, I forgot to share. We have, let's see, update from Festival of Neighborhoods Working Group. And unfortunately, I missed the last meeting, and
I was out of town as well, but Christina was there. And so I think it's just appropriate for her to give us an update of the meeting with the Doomsday individuals and call that as our meeting update.
thank you, Christina.
You're welcome, and this will be quick, because we're just sort of in a holding pattern with them, basically. So I should have pulled up the date that we were there, but I think it was 2 Fridays ago. Dawa and I went down to Noir Collective. We were supposed to meet one person from the YMI/Goombay, and we ended up meeting another person, Alexandria, who owns Noir Collective, and she's also on the Goombay steering committee, I think they call themselves, as well as the YMI board, I believe. And so she felt comfortable talking with us, because we were really not there to say anything definitive, but really just to offer an idea and see what they thought of it. So we pitched, this idea of would they be comfortable with Goombay moving back down to the block this year? Would they be comfortable with the Festival of Neighborhoods happening up in Pack Square? And would there be room for collaboration and cross-pollination and all that? And, she, not be out of respect to the rest of the Goombay organizers, was not going to give us an answer, a yes or a no. So her plan was to take that proposal to that steering committee. They were scheduled to meet this past Thursday, and I did check in with Next Millen, and that meeting had to get postponed for another meeting. And so they're going to meet next week, and they'll let us know what everybody thinks about that idea. Do you have anything to add, Dawa?
The only thing that I would add is, it seemed to me that there was an appreciation for checking in on this idea, and that certainly, while there are opportunities for cross-pollination and bringing different people together and possibly expanding the footprint of the festival. It is also a historical festival, and certainly want to be mindful of does it feel like a good match, and does it respect the history to bring in an additional layer. So that was, I will just add that was my personal impression, and certainly appreciate the willingness to share an idea and to get feedback, and to give space for that feedback to be taken to the full board so that they can consider as a group whether or not this might be an opportunity to explore.
Would it be of any benefit from one of us to attend that meeting and answer any questions that they may have?
I would say at this time, I think maybe giving them the space within their own meeting to just run the idea by and to just be able to speak freely. I got the impression if there's questions that they'll bring those back. And we can certainly, if they come to us first, they may come to you all first, then we can certainly share them. But I think that it probably makes the most sense to just give them space to play around with the idea and really have
Okay.
some dialogue about if it's a good match.
Let me ask, do we have I think there was one more week, Saturday weekend at the end of that month that was available for Pack Square. Did we ever put a hold on that?
I don't really know if we can put a hold on dates like that. Yeah, pretty much your hold is when you put your application in.
So I'm thinking that, I know we wanted it, but that neighborhood, I forget what the National Neighborhood Day is. That's for the whole month, isn't that
A whole
correct?
month.
Yeah, National Neighbor Month is
I'm wondering
September.
whether we should entertain the thought about not interfering with their festival and just going ahead and booking. My term limit is off in July, so I won't be involved in this, but I'm wondering whether we should just secure a spot at Pack Square, and so that we have it, so that we're not, I really like the fact it's downtown, and I think most of us on NEC like the fact that it's downtown because it's accessible. And if we wait too long, that we may not have that, and then we're hunting around for another venue, so to speak, that may be in an area that's not as accessible for our neighborhoods, and that we should just probably change the date instead of trying to negotiate another festival that is historic, it's been there a long time. And frankly, in my opinion, if I was on that festival, I would not necessarily want another group coming in. Whether I like the group or not didn't matter. It's just somebody different coming in, and I'm pretty, as everybody knows, I'm pretty straight. I want it this way, and this is the way it's been, and that's the way I want it. And I don't know whether they feel that way or not, but I would. And so I'm thinking whether we should entertain.
Well, I'm not sure, really, Sharon. Looking at it in another way, there's 3 members that are going to be rolling off the board July 1. And we do not know when members will be coming to take our position. And I'm not sure if the NAC committee would be able to handle the large capacity of the neighborhood festival without those 3 individuals that are getting ready to roll off. So, with that said, this really needs to go back to Babette, I would believe, to have her here for her discussion and how she views that. I just don't want it to be a failure in any way. I want it to be successful. And
I agree. I agree, but I think that having heard Babette, if we're speaking specifically of Babette, that downtown is certainly a great spot for
Right.
neighborhoods to access.
and she wanted it. She wanted it more than anyone to have it.
Well, I also wanted it downtown. I was
Okay.
more wanting it downtown than in an outside venue because it's just easier to access. It's easier to get our food trucks there, and it just, for me, it was just easier. Accessibility is when I thought about it. But I'm afraid that if we lose it and we're already, getting where people are planning all their activities, and Pack Square is the main place everybody wants to go, that if we don't secure it, that we're going to lose it. And I'm not so confident that the Goombay Festival is going to want to share. Not that they won't, but it's an isolated case. It's their festival, and I can personally see how they want to keep it their festival. I don't know how anybody else feels about that.
I would
think
like
your
to-
thought process is exactly correct. I mean, it is a risk to assume that they want this. And we need the space. And if we have the opportunity to go in and book spaces in September, we book it.
Yeah, I agree. Is there any further discussion other than?
I just wanted to also jump in on that honestly, when we talked about this last month and it was suggested that we coincide with Goombay, I wouldn't blame them if they want to keep, it's a historic festival. It's very important to the culture of people there and recognizing the history around the block and everything. And so I wouldn't, like I said, I wouldn't blame them if they didn't want to share that weekend with us. I also have in the notes from last meeting that it also coincides with the 5K that's going on that weekend. That seems like a lot.
Mhm. What was the other date? My notes
I
don't
have
it off the
September 16th was a no for Pack Square because that's splash field.
It's not a no, it's just that you would agree to leave Splashville turned on.
Oh, that sounds like it's great for the kids.
other. Oh, yeah.
So the 2 dates that were available, September 2nd, September 16th, and no others?
For Pack Square only, and then
Okay. And then I see MLK
MLK
was
Park.
available every Saturday in
Correct.
September. Okay. I like the idea of doing it with Splash Field.
I do too. I always thought that for the kids, that it would be good, and I thought it'd be easy for, having set up the Eastern Valley Festival at MLK, it's a little problematic, getting everything in there and on the field, and I like Pack Square, it's easier. We could get the volunteer organization that's gonna set up the bouncy house, and I forget the gentleman's name, Wendy, that was gonna bring all the kids stuff in. It'd be so much easier to set up a Pack Square. And we could, if it ended up being a smaller venue of food trucks, we could squeeze everything in, also smaller, as opposed to spreading out in the whole area, depending on how many food trucks. I'll be off, you'll be off,
And Peter.
and Peter will be off. So we have to, it doesn't mean I won't be involved. But I'm thinking we should entertain to change it to September 16.
Do we want to hear from the Goombay people first, just because we did ask them, and it might be kind of rude to then change our minds and not even hear from them first?
Could we withdraw our application? Could we put an application in for the 16th, so we have ourselves protected?
And
then here.
and then say thank you.
And then withdraw the application.
And
Is that
say
doable?
thank you, but,
Just so we're protected.
yeah, I agree. If we all, again, we're a collective group, if we all agree that Pack Square is convenient and where it should be, unless there's major disagreement, or any disagreement for that matter. I'd like to bring it to a vote.
It really just makes the most sense.
It does to me. So I think what I'll do is bring it to a vote that we kindly withdraw the date that coincides, I forget what is that date?
September 2nd.
September 2nd from Goombay, and we leave them from having to have that discussion, and we decide to have our neighborhood festival on September 16th at Pack Square, and we reserve that. And then,
I'll second that.
second that, any discussion?
I think it's important to have some sort of communication with the Goombay Steering Committee though, and sort of, it seems something to the effect of when we discussed it at our meeting, we realized the historical significance, something that just not like, hey, peace out, we're about, that we actually communicate that
I
our
agree.
reasoning behind that is a respectful one.
I agree, and we can have discussion with Christina whether we need to write a letter, or we can just convey it to Christina and she can pass it on, makes the most, I don't know, sense on how to approach that.
Okay. I'm happy to share the email address. It sounds like, Elizabeth, you sort of have a good formulation going on of what that could say.
Does it sound that way?
It does.
Yes,
You
you
made
did.
you made it sound that way anyway. But I think it would be nice, maybe coming from the working group.
To thank them for their consideration and after our discussion. Okay. I can draft a statement and
That'd be
send it
nice.
to you and Bobette. Or
I'll send it to Bobette and pass it, yeah.
and just
That would
say
be
this is
great.
okay.
Yeah, thank you for that. So we have a motion on the floor to change the neighborhood festival to September 16th with sending out a letter to the Goombay Festival people, thanking them for the time and energy. And we rescheduled to the 16th at Pack Square. And we had a second on that, so all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you for that. Now, we are on to our citywide emergency operations planning with Mr. Knighton, our Division Chief of Emergency Management, Special Operations at the Asheville Fire Department. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for letting me come speak with you. I want to make this quick, but I also want to make it interactive. Many times we go give these presentations, and it's a one-way. You listen to me, and then I sit down. So, but that's not this. The whole point of this is we are in the phase in our planning process of engaging the community, and we are doing it. We have multiple strategies, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about our project as a whole, and then we're going to have a little group discussion with us and just kind of talk through some things. And this is the first two stops are today. I'm pretty much my whole month, the rest of this month and all of next month I'm making some first glances, talking to some folks about in our community in all different arenas about what we're doing as a city. As you know, neighborhood resilience is one of the council goals. And what we're doing in support of that council goal is redoing our emergency operations plan and our continuity of operations plan. And again, as she read, I'm Jerry Knighton. My job with the fire department is emergency management, along with other duties as assigned as we all have. But primarily, that's my job. So what we're going to talk about today, again, is community engagement strategy, the survey. We're going to give a little overview of the project and then have some group discussion. So our strategy for this community engagement piece, this is not the one and only time that you will be hearing from me or someone from our shop. We are in the process of updating these plans, but in order to have accurate plans that we can operationalize, it's super important that we have the community's input to inform these plans, training, and exercise so that we're able to respond faster and meet the community where they are, no matter where they are. And so these are two, when we talk about preparedness and resilience, these are cornerstones for us in our operation. We have to have that plan, and the plan anchors us in a process in the way we organize. So what we want to understand from this community engagement, and as we enter into this cycle, as you can see in front of you, this is the personal participation, the community dialogue. We're going to look at what the feedback that we get, not only from the survey, but from presentations that we're going to give. And that feedback is going to inform our training and our continued education, as well as the plans themselves. We have lots of data sets that we're able to have access to. We leverage all of our partnerships within the city with our horizontal stakeholders within the departments and some of our vertical stakeholders through the state and county to get these data sets. But it's very, very important that we not just let the data stand on its own, that we actually go get in front of a group, hear concerns, hear the lived experience of folks that have lived through disasters in our community. So that's kind of what we're wanting to understand. The feedback will inform the two plans, and also the scenarios used in the plans and how we plan on exercising this in the future. What we're doing here, that there is a survey that's live. I'll give you a QR code here in just a few minutes, as well as a flyer that we've created so that you can take this flyer back to your neighborhoods and in the best way that you see fit, share this information. We have it available through all of our social media platforms, as well as any group that I can get in front of, as well as leveraging any partnerships we have. Some of the folks we've already engaged with that really were on the ground floor with us was equity, inclusion, and sustainability. They have I met with their committee this afternoon, and we talked about what's the best way to do it. I kind of gave them a little peek behind the curtain is the heavy lift that this is for the entire city. It's not just the fire department. These are both citywide plans. So what we have is the live survey, dedicated web space. We're here tonight in front of you to discuss, and the other opportunities that we've already had where we're thinking and where we're going is using sustainability as relationships, using equity inclusion. Also, Asheville Housing Authority. We had a really good meeting with them to talk about getting this information out and what some surveys and what some interactions could look like. So a couple of the questions that we have just related to the survey and some examples. This one really was related to the risks and hazards you've personally lived through while in the city of Asheville. You can see that's a pretty comprehensive list that goes kind of across the spectrum. And we get these from lots of different data sets, but it's also very important, again, we want to make sure that we're addressing and responsive to what keeps you up at night and how that works. And all of these things are, they're very unfortunate when they happen, but we must, the show must go on, right? We have to respond, we have to organize ourselves and communicate through these things together as a community. And that's kind of the important aspect of this. So this is just one of the survey question examples. The other, it's kind of multifaceted, is how do you want to interact and what kind of personal preparedness what do you want? What do you want? How would you want to interact with this information, and what kind of events would you want to attend? Lots of good ideas have been floated around, lots of interaction. At the fire department, we're really good about it. We're in the schools. We have positions dedicated to being in the schools, educating our community members and their children on fire prevention. But we're talking more of an all hazards approach here. So what is that all hazards approach to education and prevention, mitigation, recovery? What does that look like in our community? And what kind of events and things would you like to see? Have interaction with city staff with the mindset of preparedness and building that resilience. The reason for the survey are these two plans. The first is the emergency operations plan, and that's how the city responds. So an event occurs, there has to be an organization, setting of objectives, figuring out the issues, and then having a strategy applied to tactics to get out there and respond. Also, there's two things that every incident or event have in common. They begin local and they end local. So no matter how complex something gets, those two things will always be the commonality between any event of whether it's environment related or man-made. They begin and end locally. So how do we as a city prepare and respond to those events, but also when the light shines away, how do we recover? How do we get back to a new normal, and how do we have that spring back to whatever that new normal might be? And the kind of the difference and in between is building that resilience. If we focus on that personal preparedness at the neighborhood level, we have success when we keep things small, when we keep things local. So how do we operationalize that success, and how do we prepare you, and how do we prepare our neighborhoods and our community to be more resilient and to be better prepared? The other plan that we're dealing with is a continuity of operations plan, and that's how the city will continue to provide those essential services during times of emergency. These plans parallel, and you can see there's a lot of overlap, but we want to make sure that not only are we organizing the response, but we're also making sure that the rest of the city and the rest of the service and the rest of the things that we provide, how do we prioritize and make sure those things, we don't drop any balls, or that we're able to continue no matter what's happening outside. So that's kind of the project overview, and that's what the survey is going to inform these two plans. So some questions when we talk about it, as neighborhoods, what emergencies concern your neighborhoods the most? What are those things that concern you the most? Again, we have a pretty comprehensive list of things that can happen, and we're using all types of data sets, but I think it's super important that we have this dialogue and we talk through that. So I'll kind of open it up to the group. Number one, for any questions that we have, but specifically related to this concern and in your neighborhoods, what are your thoughts and any questions so far?
Yes, I've been thinking about this for some time since it was brought to us back in January as one of our initiatives for this coming year. And I want to applaud you for this wonderful initiative. I'm very, very excited about it. Because I can remember civil defense when I was a young child. So with that being said, we have so many new neighbors that are moving into our city that don't even know where our fire departments are located or the libraries or any of that. So my suggestion is a simple one, and that would be wherever you find a small book library in the neighborhood, is to put a red box underneath the book library. And in that box would be the information that you had on the 2 plans screen. So it was under the emergency preparedness, how to make a plan, how to build a kit, how to be informed. And we could do this by having the neighborhoods come together and build the little boxes, paint them red, and have them all be aware what is inside of this box. So when they're walking by, they see the books, they'll see the little shelter with the red box, and they will become information for them to help them if there's an emergency. We, living here in Asheville, we have no idea what's going to happen at Oak Ridge, Tennessee. We have no idea what any of those things could happen from other sources. So it's really, really important for us to think about how we can bring in the civil defense and make everybody aware of how to protect themselves. Where to go, where's your fire department? All of that would be in this little box.
All right.
And that's my suggestion, and we would just get the wood, and that could be actually done through NAC. We could find a grant where we could build these and have them made wherever we find the little library boxes in our neighborhoods, and label it emergency preparedness or something along those lines, so that when anybody is interested, they can stop and pull a sheet out, and it has all this information on it, and it makes them feel more secure.
I also want to quickly say that you've come to Easton Valley neighborhood, which is my neighborhood, and we as a neighborhood have talked about what we want in our neighborhood and how we want it, and if we're going to have a neighborhood leader. So I think each neighborhood is going to want to respond differently to each situation, and if you engage as much as possible the neighborhoods that are involved in their community. And I think the trick is going to be finding the neighborhoods that are not, that don't know who their neighbors are, not established neighborhoods. But I do know that you're coming to each and every neighborhood that you can and presenting this to us. So you coming here is wonderful. I've heard twice now in my Eastern Valley neighborhoods. Emergency preparedness, how do we want it, food sources, who is going to be our neighborhood contact, and we're working on all that. Now it's taken a long while, as you know, for doing this, to talk to all of us and what's going to work for our neighborhood, because I don't think one plan is going to work for every neighborhood. We're all going to have a different idea. So that's, I think, is going to be your trick.
Yep, absolutely. This is definitely not a one-size-fits-all solution. And really, it's just helping us to get organized and having those neighborhood contacts, but absolutely, the ones that aren't, how can we better facilitate that? And facilitate that interaction. You know, if it's this particular format, if it's another format, you know, what does that look moving forward? And this is just the first pass, because we're really getting back on track. We're taking a lot of those lessons we learned during COVID, and not just letting those go by. Right? We're capturing that progress that we made. We made a lot of progress, and we had to pivot very quickly, but we were able to make a lot of progress and make sure was not done in vain. So, any other comment or discussion? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just looking at this list, and I'm really curious, I would be really curious to see in the survey what tops the list in this area, because I've been in Asheville now 28 years, and I would say almost everything that I can think of that has affected me or my friends or my neighbors has been water related. You know, when it floods or when it erodes or when roads are blocked, then there's also water pipes and things. You know, we had the thing, I guess, just a few months ago where there was some water. People didn't have access to water, and there were people handing out water. And I don't know if that was you all, with water resources. I don't know how that works. But those are the things that come to mind when I look at how we really are buffered from sometimes the hurricanes and tornadoes, just the topography. Not that those haven't happened, but they're fairly rare compared to other places I've lived. But water seems to be key. How are you all involved in that?
Absolutely. So it's multifaceted. So kind of back to that emergency operations plan. Having that plan and organizing the same way every time helps us to not only be more consistent, but ensure that our responses are consistent and that we are keeping up with that close collaboration, cooperation, and communication. So yeah, it was a team effort for sure. We all were involved in that. But I think you're right, and that's what we want to. We're going after this data set right now. We're going after not what, again, there's national trends, national best practice, but the data that we want to use to inform our plans and inform our training and exercise is the data that's local to us. And so I envision the next time that I stop by and kind of give you an update, because we're looking to complete this first round in August. So after August, we'll have a better idea of what the data says, and we'll be able to narrow these things down, and the input and the feedback that we receive. We also want to be able to draw a line from the input that was received to the community and how those inform the plans and inform the training, and then what was the after action of that? What did we learn, and what were the innovations that were created from the dialogue and the communication within our communities? So, did you have something? I saw you. And again, which points to this, you said earlier, how does your community come together during emergencies? Many of you have plans, many of you have people, individuals. Obviously, our community and public engagement has a huge presence supporting this group as well as others and those neighborhood connectors. And how do we take all of that, organize, and then operationalize what that is? As we all know, the weather is we're very susceptible in the mountains. Maybe not susceptible as the coast, but it's a different kind of susceptibility, right? So we have to have that all hazards approach is going to be critical to this, and that all hazards approach is going to be critical to how we come together as a community and talk about that. Just to kind of finish up, are there any? And if there are, we definitely won't. I'm offering myself up. To come speak,
September
come talk.
16th.
Yeah. But we're, absolutely, so I'll kind of, maybe Christina can help me out with that. If your communities or your neighborhoods are getting together, and they're gonna have any kind of meetings, I would love to come, love to talk, sit around, have a conversation, and talk about some preparedness and see how we can get this conversation started. And again, this is, obviously a start. The idea would be to kind of get into a rhythm of where we're continuing this momentum and continuing this project throughout. So they have my contact information. You guys have it here too. And I would be open to anything. So again, there's the link to the survey. And I apologize, I should have put this in the email earlier, is the link to the survey, but you can click on that and take it.
I'm trying to do too.
Yep. So we can leave that up there. And then my shameless plug for AVL Alert. One of the other things is we're going out here and talking about
Thumbs up.
preparedness. One of the tools that we have is AVL Alert. So I'm sure this group is signed up for that. But if not, there's another QR code on the back here that will direct you to AVL Alert.
I actually have a question about
Yeah.
that. So my day job, I am the vice president of a digital PR company. So we focus a lot on communications. And one of the things obviously is text messages, push notifications, and things like that. And so in kind of one of the two plans, or I guess in both plans that you presented, what role and who is responsible for kind of managing the communications with the community? And I don't know if that's under your purview, maybe it's a different, department altogether. Only because, especially during the water outage, I didn't have water for 10 days. So, and somebody like me who I feel like, compared to some of the other, I think, residents in Asheville is pretty well informed. And I kind of looked at the regular places and there wasn't really anything cohesive communications-wise. So I guess my question is really more, is that something that is definitely part of this initiative, or is that something completely different?
So I think it's it's definitely a part of this initiative. But I think that the process and how we organize and how we respond, there's a humongous communication piece. And making sure that that piece is, when we organize and when we're dealing with all of the various incidents and all the various issues, it can be complex very, very quickly. And being able to have that, I guess, the consistency and the doing the same thing every time. How do we, the way I look at information is, and the way we're looking at it through the lens of these plans is, the information that I have, how do I set you up for success? And then how do I use, and how can you set me up for success with the information that you have? So I think if we start there, then I think the information and then the exchange of information, we use all of our partners. The community and public engagement is a huge partner. We have public information officer within the fire department as well as the police department, but I think that team and really channeling that team and letting, they have a huge role in this. And we've had some very, very interactive discussions with our community and public engagement about what that looks like and the organization behind this. But I think in order for us to be able to communicate that, we have to look at it and kind of operate in that of how do I set you up for success
Right.
and how do you set me up for success? And I think if that's goal number one, then I think everything else kind of takes care of itself. And so there's expectations management that goes along with that, and all of that relates to this plan and how we are in that process. So hopefully, if the objectives are good, the strategy's right, we're out there doing the good work, then we have lots to communicate, and we're setting everyone up for success. And eliminating that reflex time.
Thank you.
I have one other just thing about communication while we're talking about it. We're the neighborhood advisory committee meeting, and a lot of times we focus on the neighborhoods that are officially registered and recognized by the city, and typically those neighborhoods are very active. They have active Facebook pages or whatever, and they seem to communicate pretty well between themselves. They have kind of like a point of contact, and I feel like the more difficult group to reach are those people who don't live in a registered neighborhood. I don't live in a registered neighborhood, so I don't have anyone telling me what's going on up the street or whatever. It's kind of up to me to figure that out, and my neighbor's probably figuring it out too. We're not talking to each other. So, not that we're on bad terms. I just mean we don't talk to each other regularly. So yeah, that's just my suggestion, is that some additional effort is put towards connecting with those people who aren't in a registered neighborhood.
Absolutely, and in the survey, when you take it, you'll see kind of where there's obviously there's opportunity to put your zip code in there, and there's obviously those neighborhoods, and some of the neighborhoods already I've really not recognized, and I'm a lifelong resident in West North Carolina. I've been here all my life, and so some of those neighborhoods and some of those I don't really recognize, and that's kind of one of those points that we're talking about, is how do we catch those folks that are in the middle, and how do we leverage those relationships that we have, not only that maybe someone else has, another department or another stakeholder has, how do we leverage that to connect them, and building that connections and connecting that resource to need. That's what these two plans are really all about. well. So, yes, thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
You're welcome.
Very much, thank you. Very informative. All right, we have run over, and we have participation on other boards, and I don't know, Elizabeth, do you have something you want to say on multimodal that's going on?
Well, we haven't had another meeting since our NAC meeting, and it's this Wednesday. However, there was an event last week that a lot of members of Multimodal Transportation Commission came to around the bike lanes that they're proposing, and a lot of public input that was given last Wednesday, opportunities for that with the bike lanes on College and Patton and what those could look like. And it was a really cool process, I will say, with lots of big maps and sticky notes and concerns and dots and, all the stuff that you get input. That's really cool. But if you have been on Charlotte Street and seen those, one of the biggest takeaways I thought were the green boxes, and I forgot what they call them.
Bike boxes.
Bike boxes, where visually, the bike lane is covered in green as you approach an intersection, and even in front of the cars, where the cars have to wait back. That's some of the things that are being proposed, and moving all the logistics about where they are one way, having the bike lanes in the left lane, and how to turn and navigate traffic. But it was a really neat event. It was held at the Collider last Wednesday, and lots of city people were on hand to answer questions. I'm sure that will be a major point of conversation at our meeting on Wednesday.
Thank you. Well, thank you all for a great meeting, and I look forward to Bobette being back and getting us back on track. And the meeting is adjourned unless there is any objection.